keep finding a way to stack up the wins and keep increasing that American League West lead. And we will all be very, very happy campers here in a few months. What is up? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back and welcome into the Seattle Mariners post-game recap. Mariners pull it out late. They defeat the White Sox 4-3. They improved to, I believe, a season high. It's got to be season high 9 games over 500 at 39-30. And unless the Texas Rangers are about to score 14 runs in the ninth inning, the Mariners will now increase their AL West lead to 6.5 games over Texas. Houston does win, but the Mariners will remain 7.5 up on the Houston Astros. A very, very productive day from the Mariners. Not always pretty in this one, but you know what? Where the Mariners are at in the standings, I'm kind of in that no picture on scorecard stuff right now. Like, don't really care. Get the wins, stack the lead, and give yourself that cushion. And plus, the Mariners were dealing with a few things today. We'll talk about the Brian Wu injury situation, and then also no Andres Munoz used in this game as well. Before I dive any further, do me a favor, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're new or lurking. Only about 20 subs away from 3,600. I think we can reach that tonight. Thank you guys so much for the support. I mean, I got comments from people. I think there was one from like Finland yesterday, England, Ohio. I know Ohio's fairly close, but in the grand scheme of things to where I'm at. But just incredible to see this many people come together watching my channel. Just truly means the world to me. I hope you guys enjoy it. Like I said, I'm not any more knowledgeable than any one of you. I'm just a guy that likes to come on here and talk baseball and share the highs and even the lows with you guys. You know, for the wins, it's great to celebrate. And for the losses, it's good cope to come on here and talk about it. Before I dive into the game, let's talk a little bit about the injury situation. Before the game started, Brian Wu was scratched, getting an MRI on his forearm. They're waiting for the results. Scott did talk a little bit to the media before the game. He didn't sound super concerned, but he also didn't sound like, oh yeah, we got Brian making the start next. It's all good. We're just taking it easy either. So we're going to have to wait and see the results of that MRI. Listen, it's always nervous with Brian Wu. He missed time at the start of the year, was put on the IL, and I think all of us kind of thought in the back of our mind, we could be Tommy John, and then after the Oakland game or during the Oakland game, he comes out in his first start, and we were worried. Scott said he was okay. And now this is kind of the third time this year we're dealing with something with Wu. So you can see why they've been super careful with the pitch count and everything. Obviously, like best case scenario, he starts this series and he's fine, just gets pushed back a little bit. Worst case, I don't want to talk about the worst case is, but then you got that middle ground of maybe just a short IL stint, let him heal up, let him get a couple weeks, and then get him, back up into the rotation. And again, I'll reiterate, this is where that 6.5 game lead plays a nice role. You can be a little bit patient with Brian Wu here. Not that, I guess not really, because even if you were tied, you wouldn't be like, oh, we got to get you back out there, even though your elbow's falling off. You always want to be careful with arms and stuff like that, regardless of where you're at in the standings. But I guess I mean more for going out and acquiring another starting pitcher or whatever avenue they want to take if Wu does have to miss a fairly significant amount of time. Fingers crossed he doesn't. Probably a game that ends up being a much easier win with Brian Wu in there, because I don't think the White Sox are scoring 3 runs against Brian Wu. Couple roster moves as well. Now, Wu was not placed on the IL. Scott did say they're hoping to avoid an IL stint. That's encouraging. The fact that that's even maybe up for debate is encouraging. But until we know the results of the MRI, hard to say. Matt Bowman was designated for assignment, as was Kirby Snead. Jonathan Diaz comes up. I imagine he'll be going back down tomorrow. Well, I don't think Diaz might be out of options too, so we'll see what they end up doing there. But you'd really like to have the roster spot. And then Edward Bizzardo also back on the big league roster as well. So Diaz ends up getting the start today. I'll talk about it a little bit, but was Diaz good? No, I don't think he was very good. Results-wise, he was fine. If you'd have told me before the game Diaz goes 5 1/3, gives up 3 earned runs, I know I use this analogy all the time, but Jay, would you sign the dotted line? I would have. It wouldn't have been like, oh, yes, absolutely. But I would have taken 5 1/3 with 3 earned runs. I would have said that's fine. That should give you a chance to win this ball game. And it did. I don't think he was awful, but I don't think he's particularly good either. Kind of honestly, I don't mean this as an insult. Diaz kind of to me is like the most generic left-handed starter you could have. It's Tommy Malone, Jonathan Diaz. It's just guys that are capable of getting outs? Absolutely. Are they capable of getting shellacked? Absolutely. Do I think that game is different with Brian Wu? Yes. And it's kind of funny too. It's not just the 3 earned runs and 5 1/3. If he had given that up, like let's say a couple infield hits to start the game, then Luis Robert goes deep. Tip of cap a little bit. Robert's amazing. It wasn't even Robert that really killed him. I think he walked him once. It was a lot of other guys, that got him. So, like I said, I didn't think he was great, but results wise, got the job done. And when you have spot starts, that's what you're looking for. I do wonder, for people wondering why they didn't go with Emerson Hancock. Diaz was on full rest. Hancock pitched on the 7th, so Diaz was more rested. I imagine if this is something where Wu does have to miss a few starts, they will get this around to going with Emerson Hancock. And I was talking to Mariner Sir on Twitter. I want to give him credit for this because he mentioned it. I do wonder if they do something here, and it wouldn't shock me either if they send Diaz down or DFA him or whatever needs to be done to have Diaz off the roster. I'm not sure if he's out of options or not. I wouldn't be shocked if they actually brought up Emerson Hancock and he started Thursday. Credit to Mariner Sir for that idea for a couple reasons. One, it does give everybody an extra day's rest, or they could do it probably not tomorrow because I think Miller's slated for tomorrow. And I think Hancock would still be on short rest with that. And it pushes back your big 3 for the Texas series. So then you have Castillo, Kirby, and Gilbert against Texas. So you've got your best 3 going in what's going to be the Mariners' most important series of the year to date coming up this weekend. Also Thursday against Chicago, you're facing Crochet, who's really good. Now, the rest of the White Sox are not, so it's still a winnable game. But I would hate to have Castillo pitch in that game. Crochet dominates and you don't get the win, and now you're looking at possibly Kirby, Gilbert, and then Diaz or Hancock against Texas. I'd rather throw Hancock out there Thursday, give everybody an extra day's rest, and go Castillo, Kirby, Gilbert against Texas. I think that would be ideal, and it wouldn't shock me if they did that. Again, credit to my man Mariner Sir for bringing that up. Just want to give him credit because that was kind of his idea he mentioned on Twitter, which I think makes a lot of sense, and it would not shock me at all if they do that. And especially makes sense because I feel bad for Diaz, but there's really no reason to keep him on the roster. If he went 5 1/3, he's not going to be available until, possibly the Saturday game against Texas. Are you willing to go 3 games playing with 25 guys? And then the other interesting thing was no Andres Munoz tonight. They went with Ryan Stanek in the 9th. I understand not using Munoz back-to-back days why he didn't pitch yesterday. Now, I kind of joked on Twitter that, and if you're a White Sox fan, watch this. Please, I don't mean this disrespect. I guess I kind of do, but trust me, the Mariners have been the brunt end of jokes for years. Do the Mariners just think that little of the White Sox that they didn't even think to use Munoz in this series? Like, we'll just give him the series off. Probably not. I don't think you do that. But if Munoz is needing back-to-back days off to recover, it might just be better to IL him. Truthfully, since Munoz's injury 7 days ago, they've played 7 games, and he's pitched once. Now, again, kind of like the Polanco situation where you could just IL'd him to begin with. I get it, right? You think he can come back. You want to get him in the game. But I do wonder if it's at the point where, again, I understand back-to-back days. But if it's at the point where you need 2 days off, again, you're kind of wasting a little bit of a roster spot there. Now, the bullpen without Munoz against Texas, I know Texas is scuffling, would make me very nervous. That's probably why they haven't done it yet. But I do wonder if we see something there. So I wanted to get that out of the way, talking about the injuries and everything. But listen, a tremendous win for the Mariners. Battle back. Drew Thorpe, I thought they did a pretty good. It is Drew Thorpe, right? I always mess up first names sometimes, and I want to make sure I get that right. It is Drew Thorpe. Okay. Thorpe is interesting. Pretty good prospect. I was watching some Locked On White Sox this morning, listening to it, and their point with Thorpe was pretty much ceiling not super high, but a high floor. Like, Thorpe is a guy that it's hard to not see him settling in to be a really solid middle of the rotation starter. And I think that's pretty fair. That's kind of what I saw. His fastball is not great, but he works off that changeup so well. I was impressed with Thorpe. And I thought the Mariners had some decent at-bats against him, and they chased him after 5 innings, and they got to the White Sox bullpen. If you follow me on Twitter, that's kind of what I was saying the whole time. Okay, some decent at-bats, battled back a little bit against Thorpe, got a couple runs, didn't play amazing, but forced the pitch count to get high. And you're getting into a White Sox bullpen that did not have Michael Kopech likely available tonight. So you should be able to get at least a run or two off of their bullpen, which the Mariners were able to do. So I thought they did pretty good against Thorpe overall. Again, not an offensive explosion, but enough, enough to get it going. And a clutch performance from Cal Raleigh, Mitch Garver swinging the bat much better. And we'll get into the entire box score here. Let's start with the pitching as we always do. Jonathan Diaz, 5 1/3, 9 hits, 3 runs, 3 earned, 1 walk, 4 Ks, give up 2 home runs. Again, results-wise, fine. No problem with that. If you're asking me what I think of Diaz, going forward, it's Tommy Malone, right? Sure, he's fine at home in a pitcher's ballpark in a pinch if he's got to make a small handful of starts. Is he the guy I want as my number 5 starter the rest of the way? No. I view him more as kind of a 6th or 7th. I would rather see Emerson Hancock, again, if Brian Wu has to miss some time. And not that Hancock was amazing either, but I think there's just a little more upside with Emerson Hancock. And I'd rather see him in that spot, to be honest. But, like I said, Diaz was fine. He got the results that he needed to get, and he got them into the 6th inning, which was huge. So this is one of those, I tip my cap to Diaz. I give him the kudos. Don't think he was necessarily that great. 9 hits. It truthfully should have been 10, but Julio deked. I think Corey Lee on the Zach DeLoach base hit. Poor Zach DeLoach can't get a hit out of that. Former Mariner prospect traded in the Santos trade. So it probably should have been 10 hits. Did a nice job in the 2nd inning. Wiggled out of a bases loaded jam. Of course, Martin Maldonado had to have his patented hit against the Mariners, as always, but limited it to 1 run. So, all in all, again, fine job. Do I want Jonathan Diaz pitching in Yankee Stadium? No. Am I okay with him making a couple spot starts at home against Chicago? Sure. Trent Thornton was really good, inning in 2/3 with 2 strikeouts, no hits, no walks. Came into a little bit of a tight spot, got Maldonado to ground into a double play, then pitched a shutout inning in the 7th. Great outing from Trent Thornton, good to see. Mike Baumann, actually I thought pitched pretty well. I know the Mariners actually get out of a runner at third with nobody out in the 8th inning. Baumann comes in, gives up a hit to Andrew Vaughn. He's actually been swinging the bat pretty well lately. He had a home run off Diaz tonight. And then they pinch run with, who was it that pinch ran? Dukes or something? Duke Ellis, right? Duke Ellis pinch runs for Andrew Vaughn, and he steals 2nd. Then Baumann tries to pick him off, and he gets to 3rd. So, Baumann a little unlucky that the runner gets to 3rd. Now, Baumann, the fielder, didn't help with that, but Baumann, the pitcher, all he did was give a base hit. But then he gets the ground out of, who hit the ground out there? It was, because let's see, DeYoung grounds out to Rojas, who makes a great play, gets over to first, and then he strikes out Corey Lee. So I thought Baumann overall was fine. And Baumann's been a pretty solid addition. I know the Melendez home run on Sunday was frustrating. That just kind of, I will reiterate that I think that home run was just happening. You just weren't getting out of that series with a 1-2-3 9th inning. I know that sounds stupid, and that's not any kind of statistical analysis, but Melendez was hitting a home run in that at-bat. I think you could have thrown prime Mariano Rivera in that situation. But Baumann's been pretty solid, right? We've talked about this team adding a legitimate bullpen arm. Baumann has given you that. I've pounded the table for Austin Adams. Well, there's no guarantee Austin Adams doesn't give a home run to Melendez in that spot. Baumann is giving you pretty much what any reliever that you think is a high leverage guy to acquire could give you. Baumann's done a nice job. And then Saucedo comes in and he gets Mendick to strike out to end the inning. Nice job by Sauce. And then Ryan Stanek, nice 1-2-3 in the 9th inning. No tomfoolery, no base runners, got it done. And nice job by Stanek pitching back-to-back days to finish it out. And getting the 1-2-3 because Luis Robert was looming there in the hole. Last thing you want to see is Robert come on is, a go-ahead run in the situation there. So really nice job by Ryan Stanek getting the job done in Munoz's absence. Again, whether that's injury related, whether it's just we think we're going to beat the White Sox, we want to give Munoz days off, which again, I don't think that's it. Just kind of funny to say that a little bit. But nice job by the pitching staff. Bullpen absolutely locked down. Only gave up 1 hit and struck out 4. And let's see, that would be 3 2/3 innings. So real nice job by the bullpen. And again, Diaz did what he needed to do. So credit to him there. Looking at the offense, rough game for JP, 0 for 4. Rojas was 0 for 3 with a walk and reached on an error. Julio was 1 for 4 with the infield hit, which was huge because next batter, The big dumper comes through. Cal Raleigh, 2 for 4, 3 RBIs. Cal having a huge series. He gets the base hit in the third, which made it 3-2, which was just a nice run to get. The White Sox had hit back-to-back home runs in the top half of the third. It was nice to see the Mariners cut into that lead a little bit. And then, like I said, again, credit to Diaz for keeping them at that 3. But a nice job by Cal, a couple doubles today, having a really, really big series and a very clutch series as well. Mitch Haniger had a rough day, which was disappointing because I thought Haniger was really an unsung hero last night. So I was hoping maybe that would kind of carry over. Haniger's a guy and it's tough right now, right? Because Canzone's not swinging the bat that great. Dylan Moore's on paternity leave. Congrats to Dylan Moore and his wife on their newborn baby. So you don't have a lot of outfield depth right now. So Haniger has to play, essentially, unless you want Victor Robles out there, which I don't think you're going to get much different results from Robles. So, I think Mitch is a guy that needs to play 2 or 3 times a week, 3 to 4 at max. If you're playing lefties, I know he hasn't hit lefties that well this year, but you'd expect that to turn around a little bit. But yeah, just disappointing after a real nice game yesterday for Mitch. Luke Raley was 1 for 4. He had the double. He had the double, which I think scored on the Mitch Garver RBI double. Mitch Garver heating up. 1 for 2 with the RBI double and 2 walks. Garver on base 3 times again today. Not only is he seeing the ball very well, and he's actually kind of been doing that all year. I don't know what his walk rate is, but I'm assuming it's pretty solid. But now he's starting to drive the ball a little bit. Before it was just, hey, he was working some walks, but the contact was awful. The contact's starting to look good. I'm starting to get faith. When Mitch Garver comes up, I'm starting to go, okay, all right, Garver's up. He's swinging the bat well. You know what I'm talking about when guys get going, you start having that little bit of faith in them. Ty France was another good example. Like for a while there, I'm like, oh, Ty with runners on, that's a double play. Well, I was starting to grow that faith. Ty was turning around. I'm like, hey, Ty's up. That's kind of where I'm getting here with Mitch Garver now. So huge if he can get it turned around. Again, yes, this team needs to make additions at the deadline. But the most important thing is the current roster playing better because that's going to make those decisions a lot easier at the trade deadline. And possibly less prospects you have to give up, the less desperate you can be. So hopefully Mitch Garver has really turned the corner. Canzone was 0 for 1 with a walk. Tyler Locklear, pinched hit, was 0 for 2, moved to first base. And Bliss was 0 for 3. Bliss should have had a walk, but one of the worst strikeout calls we've seen in the home plate umpire, I think it was Gabe Morales. Actually, I didn't think called a bad game, but that at-bat to Bliss in the, what was it, the 7th? I think it was the 7th. I think it was the inning they scored the 2 runs, actually, because, yeah, it would have been Bliss, Crawford grounded out, Rojas walked, Julio, then Cal. The 3-0 pitch wasn't even close. And the 3-2 pitch was even worse, and Bliss gets punched out on it. Frustrating because the leadoff, now the Mariners do get the lead that inning, so whatever. But, that leadoff walk changes everything. And I know, it looked like JP might have grounded into a double play the next batter, but you don't know what JP's approach is going to be with Bliss on first base. That was just a terrible call. I'm going to let it go a little bit because the Mariners won, but just really, really atrocious overall. So listen, Mariners pound out, only 5 hits, but they do walk 4 times, strike out 8 times, get 4 total runs. They've faced some pretty tough pitching here from Chicago. Eric Feedy is good. In fact, I will say this, if Brian Wu is going to miss significant time, you got the White Sox in town, I would probably place if Wu is going to miss significant time. Don't know. And I think you still need to look at offense, number one. But I would make a phone call and say how much you want for Eric Feedy. I would make that call. And Feedy you would have for a couple more years too. So, could give you some benefit there as well. So I'm not saying you got to go get him. But with the White Sox in town, I think it's worth going over and knocking on whatever office they're using while they're in Seattle. And just maybe inquiring, again, depending on Brian Wu's health. And then, like I said, Drew Thorpe tonight making his major league debut. Went 5 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, only 1 earned, 2 walks, 4 Ks. Thought Thorpe threw the ball pretty well. And I will tip my cap to both pitchers. You faced some pretty good guys. We're seeing the best of what the White Sox have, and we'll see Crochet on Thursday. I said it. Me and Mariners talked about it in preview. I think this series is going to be a little bit tougher than fans think. So for anybody frustrated they haven't blown out the White Sox yet, I actually think the White Sox are kind of a matchup pretty well to the Mariners. Now, don't get me wrong. The White Sox are awful. They are terrible. Again, no offense to White Sox fans. Been there. Trust me. they're a bad team. The Mariners should absolutely beat them, and you got to get one more to take the series. But I think you've seen it with both games being kind of close, right? That they have matched up pretty well. I said it yesterday. The White Sox biggest weakness, their pitching's been bad too overall, but they do have some good guys in the rotation. The bullpen's been rough, but their biggest weakness is the offense. Well, number one, it got Luis Robert back last week. He homered yesterday. And the Mariners' biggest strength is starting pitching. Well, in some regards, that kind of nullifies your strength because the White Sox aren't going to score off many pitchers. I mean, truthfully, let's be honest, Jonathan Diaz kind of held them in check for 5 1/3. So your strength is kind of neutralized by the fact that they're just so bad at offense a little bit. And then when they're throwing out some of their better pitchers like Feedy, Thorpe, and then Crochet, it's going to be tougher to score runs. Think of it like some of those awful Mariners teams in 08 and 2010. Now, I think those teams are better than this White Sox team. But when that team threw Cliff Lee and Felix Hernandez at you, remember they went into Yankee Stadium in 2010 and took 2 out of 3 in 2010 with Cliff Lee and Felix going. Because guess what? When you got those guys on the mound, it makes your team a lot better. Not comparing Feedy and Thorpe to Felix and Cliff Lee, but I think you guys get what I'm talking about here. So I'm not disappointed by how they've played this series. And the Mariners are battling some stuff too. Like I said, Brian Woo's healthy today. You might win that game 4-1, and it's a little bit easier on the back end. I did get a Twitter question. Where is he? My man, sports lover. I think it's Isaiah. Hopefully I said that right, Isaiah. Thank you so much, first of all, for the very awesome banner picture that I will have up on my channel here. Hopefully in a couple days, I'll get that set up and everything. Thank you so much for making that for me, my man. And he had a question for me, so I'll answer it here in the video. He says, it's still early. What record do you think we need to end with this season? And with the wild card race the way it is now, if we choke and lose the division, will we even have a spot? Kind of feels like we got to keep the division at this point. Well, let's actually look at the standings a little bit. Well, I'll look at them. You guys can look at them at home, I guess. Obviously, Mariners are 39-30, 6.5 up in the division. And right now, the wild card is Minnesota 35-32. So technically, the Mariners, they're the third wild card, I should say. Technically, the Mariners are then, let's see, 2, 4, 3 games up on even a wild card spot at the moment. So I actually don't think it's a guarantee that if they didn't win the division, they wouldn't get the wild card. And it just depends. If the Mariners obviously collapse, then yeah, it's going to be tougher to get the wild card. If Texas or Houston just goes on a tear where they go 24-2 over 26 games, which, never know. It has happened. Remember 2018 with the A's, how they wouldn't lose in the second half. And if the Mariners go, over that same 26 game stretch, 14-12 and they catch you, then yeah, I think you still have a shot at the wild card for sure. In terms of winning the division, listen, right now, Texas is 31-35, Houston's 31-37. 85 probably does win you the division right now. I'd like to see the team win a little bit more than that because that would truthfully be actually Mariners playing under 500 the rest of the way. 90, I think, is a lock at this point. I just can't see where Houston and Texas get to 89, 90 wins. I think 90 is a guarantee. I think 85-87 is likely, and anything 88 and above, you got to feel pretty good. It may even be less. Honestly, like 84 might get it done, to be honest. But I think to feel comfortable, 87-89 would make me feel very comfortable. Like if you told me right now, Jay, Mariners win 88 games, like your life is on the line for this answer. Do they win the division? I'd say yes at 88. I'd be sweating bullets a little bit, but luckily those things don't happen in real life, so I don't have to worry about that. But you know what I'm saying. I think that's kind of where you have to get. If they collapse and the Mariners fall on their face, then the wild card becomes a lot tougher. And the AL's pretty deep. Like I said, let me go back to the standings here for the wild card. Because you got Minnesota, Boston's there, Toronto around 500, Detroit. So, it will be interesting to see, how it plays out. But I feel, and again, it's not a jinx. I feel pretty confident this team's going to win the division. I really do. A lot of baseball left, right? Still got 93 games. Anything can happen. But here's the thing. I think this is the best team in the division. I don't know, if you ask me right now, rest of the way, Mariners, Rangers, Astros. 93 games, right? Throw away the first 69, 93 games. Who's going to be the best team over those 93? It would be close, but I'd probably take the Mariners. Well, not only do I do that, but you got a 6.5 game lead. That is significant. Again, it matters. It absolutely matters. So, the team's in good shape. The team is in really good shape. I'm going to get out of here, guys. Enjoy the W. Bryce Miller on the bump tomorrow. Hopefully a bounce back after a tough series in Kansas City. And then we'll see what happens with any roster moves. I'll keep you guys updated if I can make some shorts on it, if I see anything, and some Brian Wu updates. Maybe we have something post-game. Let me check Twitter real quick, because there is a chance that we do have something here. Let's see. Let's check out let's check out Divish and see if my man Ryan Divish has got anything on an injury, maybe post game from Scott about the MRI. There's nothing here, so I'll check and see. I don't know if Scott's anything post game about Wu. Maybe they got the MRI results. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Have a great night, great night, everybody. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. I'll be back tomorrow. Love y'all, and as always, go first place, Seattle Mariners. Peace.